I want to ask you something. If you're a woman, when you were a little girl, or if you're a dad, when your daughter was a little girl, do you remember when she started participating in sports? I know for my girls, it was really young. All different kinds of sports: ballet, soccer, basketball, softball. I remember when she must have been not quite even 4, and they're playing rec basketball, and all the girls are just following the ball wherever it goes, no strategy. It's so cute, playing soccer. Um, and lots of times when you ask them what do they want to be when they grow up, they'll say, I want to be a ballerina. I want to be a basketball player. I want to be a dancer. I want to be a gymnast. And you supported those dreams. You're not sure how it's going to land. Lots of times you have them participating in a lot of different sports, so they can find the one that really matters to them, that speaks to them. Because frankly, competing these days, kids start really young and they belong to club sports. It's time consuming, it can be expensive, but these are some of the best moments that I have been able to share with my children. When they lose, your heart breaks. When they win, your heart soars. The pictures that are in frames across our house, the videos that we share, the times where my husband coached the teams, these are very special memories. And our girls, just like our boys, when they compete to win. Even early on, when supposedly you're not supposed to keep score, but everyone's keeping score. The kids are keeping score. They want to win. They dream about earning their place on a podium, getting a real trophy, and they know the difference. There's the participation trophies and there's the real trophies, and kids know the difference. I can tell you stories where my son, there are a lot of big trophies that he received, these really pretty participation trophies when he was really young. And the one that he prized when he was little was a little first place trophy. And that was the real trophy when they won, when their soccer team won. So they aspire to these things. They want these things. They want the medals. They dream, they think about it, they work hard. And as they get older, they have to work harder and harder. Competition becomes more difficult. And they have to make a lot of sacrifices for the sport that they love. That dream is real. And right now, in states like California, in West Virginia, in Oregon, Colorado, Maine, so many places, these dreams are being stifled. These dreams are under attack. Recently, a male athlete named A.B. Hernandez has been in the news. In California, this boy that is identifying as a girl, pretending to be a girl, stealing all the medals, coming in first place in long jump, in high jump, the triple jump. All of this happening while the girls were forced to share a podium with him. They became co-champions. No, they were the real champions. The biological girls, they were the real champions. There should not even be a such thing as a co-champion. But the California Interscholastic Federation, they don't care. They advanced 10 athletes in some of these events, 9 of whom were girls, 1 a biological boy. No announcement, no explanation. They know it's wrong. They know it's wrong because they've created the term co-champion. They've created this new podium that allows for two to stand on it. One who is the real winner, one who is the pretend winner. And everyone, all of the girls, all the parents, everyone watching, they're supposed to accept and believe and celebrate a lie. And it's wrong. It's wrong. My guest today has been standing in those stadiums in California. She's been organizing rallies. She's been the one taking the hate comments, the threats, the ejections from the meets, just so that girls don't have to share a platform anymore with a biological boy, just so girls don't have to live by lies. She is a former college player. She's going to tell her story about how much she loves her sport and how disappointed she is knowing that this lie is being perpetuated and that there are so many girls that are feeling deflated, discouraged, and they're losing their opportunities and their dignity and their safety. She is the outreach director for the California Family Council. She's the host of This Is a Woman podcast, and she is so young, but still one of the most fearless women in this fight. I cannot wait for you to hear from her. So sit tight and watch this very special podcast of Hello, everyone, and welcome to Unleashed with me, Scarlett Johnson, presented by Moms for Liberty. And today I've got a very special guest, Sophia Lorey. She grew up in California, dreaming about what millions of our daughters, girls across America, dream about every day, being an athlete, and then maybe participate in college athletics or beyond. As there's so many more opportunities for girls in sports. There's so many more girls with dreams of becoming an athlete. And we all, as moms, want to support our daughters' dreams. And as dads, especially I know with my husband, 4 girls, and we have all of them. They have participated in athletes. They have all participated in athletics in some way or another. And he loves it. It's the way, like, the girl dad bond, especially when it comes to athletics, is strong, and it really unites a father and a daughter. I know it's in my family, that's the way it's worked. And for Sophia, after 4 years of playing soccer at Vanguard University in Southern California as a defender, team captain, scholar athlete, she knows firsthand the price that girls pay when they participate in athletics, particularly at a collegiate level. And it's one that they will gladly play because they love their sport. They love to compete and they want to win. They're not doing it just for fun. They're not doing it just to be kind and to hang out with other girls. If they wanted to hang out with other girls, there's other things they could do. While they enjoy the camaraderie, they are there to compete and they're there to win. That background is not just a footnote. it is the entire reason why girls like Sophia do what they do. So let's bring Sophia on because she is doing such great work in California. She is such a powerful voice in the fight to protect women and girls sports and their private spaces and to defend biological reality. She is a young woman, but she is doing great things. So Sophia, I am so happy to have you on. I know we've been talking for a while, and I love talking to all of you young girls who, you're kind of putting a lot of adults to shame. The way that you fight, it needs to be amplified because the courage that you have is contagious, and it's so important for young girls to have examples and heroes. They need to have someone to look up to, particularly during these times where so many adults are telling them to just be quiet, to not notice what's happening. So thank you for all that you do. And I'd like for you to begin this whole conversation by talking a little bit more about your background growing up as an aspiring athlete, how it felt to be such a spectacular athlete in college, and why you care so much about the issue of women's sports.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me on, Scarlett. And it's been a pleasure to fight for California girls, but also heartbreaking that that's where we're at, that this is what we have to do to advocate for girls, just to have girls sports, something that was a common thing 10 years ago. We weren't seeing all of this ideology being put into place. But as you said, I've played sports my entire life. At a very early age, I started trying all the different sports, kind of like most kids do. Their parents are like, let's put you in this sport and then see what clicks, see what
in the rec league. You see, like, I have 5 kids. My son started soccer when he was 2.5, and they're adorable the way they're like following around. But you want them to try a lot of different things because, as you know, and I know as a mom of 5 athletes, that once they find something, you have to be really committed to it these days.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what soccer was for me. I did the little T-ball that they had for the girls and all the different things. And then I played soccer, and it always was overnight. Like, yes, this is my sport. This is what I'm passionate about. This is what I want to keep doing. And so I very early on moved from the rec league to club teams because by age 10, I knew I wanted to be a college athlete. People would say, what do you want to do when you grow up? And my answer was be a college athlete. I kind of thought like, that's what you do. Like, you grow up not knowing there's so much more that comes after that. But I was very passionate about it. And again, at 10 years old, I told my parents, I want to play college soccer one day. And they were like, okay, if that's what you want, we'll help you with that. Let's get you to the better teams. Let's get you the training. Let's do what you need to do to achieve that goal. And at 10 years old, I knew I could achieve that goal as long as I worked hard and put my mind to it.
And I think for those who don't know, club soccer, because my son was involved in that, I have many friends, some of my best friends, I don't get to see very often during this because they have kids in club soccer. This is a different era. If you don't have kids that are old enough to be playing at even 10 years old, club soccer is a huge commitment. You are practicing every day. You have during the summer, you're practicing, you're going to games, you start traveling really young. Was that your experience?
Yes, absolutely. It turned into, from doing the rec league where the soccer field was 5 minutes away from my parents' house, to now they're driving me an hour back and forth for practices through LA traffic, because you're going to go to where the better teams are. And it turns into a weekly night thing. If you have your team practices, your personal training, and then making sure if you don't have practice that night, you're doing your own thing outside to get better, keep improving. And yeah, soccer was our entire lives. I have 3 brothers. They also all played club soccer. And genuinely, that was our entire lives for over 20 years by the time my older brother started and my youngest brother ended. And that was what we did 24/7. It was soccer, soccer, soccer. Sometimes you have 4 to 5 games a weekend when you're in tournaments and everything going on, but I wouldn't change it for the world. It made me who I am today, just being able to be a captain of teams and really just learning how to lead people at a young age, learning how to sometimes play for coaches that don't like you or vice versa, or having to play on a team of girls where not everyone's going to get along at all times. And so sports teach you so much. It really, again, it goes so much further than sports at the end of the day, the grit that comes with it, the learning how to win well and lose well.
Yeah.
And so I then went on to high school. And so the way soccer works is some sports, high school is like the big deal. That's where you get recruited from and everything. For soccer, high school sports tend to be more of the fun side. Club is where things are, where you're getting recruited from, the training and everything like that. But club would go on a little bit of a break so you can do high school season. And so I played 4 years of varsity CIF, all in soccer. I did a little bit of volleyball too, but eventually ended that just to really focus on soccer. And so I got to go do 4 years of CIF. That's where we're now seeing all of the issues. I have so many great memories from high school sports, from the team dinners before games to getting to know more people on campus and just the grit that really comes with it, learning how to play with girls that necessarily aren't all at your level, some higher, some lower. And then I became a captain of the varsity team as a sophomore. So learning how to be a leader to 18-year-old girls when I was 14 and 15, that was difficult at times, but it really pushed me and I think really just improved myself outside of soccer. And then I eventually accomplished my 10-year-old dream and went to play at Vanguard University, which I was able to get an academic and athletic scholarship. So I was able to help pay for college. And that was a grind. It is daily 4 to 5 a.m. wake ups. You have weights, then you have practice, you go to class, then you go back to your second practice. And then you have to do
for a college athlete. You have to keep, you can't do all the things and you can't, party all the time. You have to keep your body in shape. You have to, because at the college level, like then you're in the big leagues now. Like it was hard in high school, but college, it gets really competitive.
Yeah, it's a whole different level. And I got a great education at Vanguard University, but sometimes I look back to college years and I forget that school even happened because you're so much in your sports. And so that was truly one of the best experiences of my life. And I'm grateful that I was able to reach that level, that I was able to achieve my goal, but really started speaking out on this because current 10-year-old girls can't achieve those same dreams because of males invading girls' sports and spaces.
Yes. So we don't know this, but how many girls are going to choose not to participate in athletics, intramural sports? I'm just about to release that there are some middle schools in Wisconsin, even in conservative areas, that have policies that allow students to choose these sports at 10 years old based on gender identity. How many girls will say, I'm not comfortable with that. I'm just not even going to try. So they never get that passion. It stops before it even starts. They just say, I'm not going to participate. Like in West Virginia, there's a big case. We were just talking about it. West Virginia versus it's a BPJ, right?
Yes.
I think I'm saying it right. Yeah. West Virginia versus BPJ, and it's shot put. And this started in middle school, where a biological boy, was just beating these girls. And then intimidating them in the locker room, making them feel unsafe. They didn't want to participate anymore. They didn't want to play the sport. And that breaks my heart.
Yeah, it is heartbreaking. And it's something that I hear from girls in California a lot. They start going through, is it even worth it to play? And I just think the health benefits it comes with playing sports, the getting outside, the moving your body, all these things. And the girls are now saying, I don't even know if I'm going to play because there's just so many boys playing girls sports. And so girls are losing out on so much. And then unfortunately, there's a lot of girls that when they find out there's a boy playing, we have some great warriors who are speaking out at the high school level, at the junior high level. But there's some girls that are starting to think, well, this is just the new norm. I'll just play against the boy. It's the new normal. And so it's heartbreaking that that's the case. I keep encouraging the girls, this is not the new normal. We cannot accept this as the new normal. We have to keep pushing back. But you're watching girls kind of just give up because of this. And I get it. I get the thought of going out onto a field and getting injured by a male or losing to a male because we're biologically different. And so it's honestly debilitating to these girls, the thought of having to play against a male. And you're right, a lot of girls, there's no way to ever actually completely track it, but I'm sure there's plenty of girls who are not playing sports right now because of this.
And you didn't have to compete against a biological male, but when this started happening and became public in California, what propelled you to act?
Yeah. So, as I said, I have three brothers who also all played soccer and they were great soccer players. And during COVID, I played college soccer during COVID. And so we got the whole you're sent home, but keep training, even though the gyms are closed, figure out how to stay in shape because we don't know when we're going to get the call of, okay, you can come back and now we have games. And so I remember at one point my coach was talking about maybe we'll do a Zoom practice. It's like, how do you do a soccer Zoom practice? So we were going through that crazy time. But I found it of, okay, it's COVID. When I go back, it's my senior season. Let's end in the best shape possible. Let's end at the best level possible. And so I spent that time when everything was shut down. I was running 6 to 7 miles a day at a 6-minute pace. I was weightlifting in my backyard. I was doing soccer drills in the front yard, was putting all this work in. And my younger brothers at the time, they were about 14 years old. And they thought, oh, there's nothing to do. Cool. Video games. We're going to play board games. We're going to hang out inside. And so my mom told them, hey, you have to go outside and play soccer with Sophia twice a week because they were still playing soccer and same thing for them. You never know when club's going to start back up. And so again, I was running 6 to 7 miles in a hilly neighborhood at a 6-minute pace. And then my two younger brothers who sat inside all day, probably eating junk food, really just taking advantage of not having anything to do, would come outside with me twice a week. And I thought, okay, I'm going to run my fitness tests with them because it's just easier to do a fitness test with someone else. I would do my fitness test with them and they would beat me every time after I was training every day in the best shape of my life. And then I thought, oh shoot, am I really behind? Do I need to get better? So when COVID finally kind of came to the end and things reopened, we went back to season and we did our fitness test as a team. And out of 30 girls, I was scoring in the top 3 on each fitness test. Yet my 14-year-old brothers who were sitting inside doing nothing were outperforming me. And that was their one workout a week. And so that was very clear to me, these biological differences, knowing that a 14-year-old could outperform a 20-year-old collegiate athlete. And so when we first saw the Riley Gaines situation, I knew I had to speak out on this because I had my rights protected. I was able to play sports safely and fairly. So started just kind of speaking out in small conversations, just to anyone around, hey, did you see this happen? Do you realize why it's an issue? And everything like that. And then it clicked for me. Like I said earlier, 10-year-old girls are not going to be able to accomplish the dreams I had. And then I just remember seeing pictures of myself from when I was little playing soccer. And I was like, she deserves better. These girls deserve better. And some of these girls don't know what's going on. Some are too afraid to speak out. I'm not really afraid of it. Like, I get the hate comments. I get the threats. I don't really care. I'm going to stand for what's right. And so I know that's part of my personality. And so I was like, okay, I'll be the voice for the girls. I'll stand up because they should just be able to focus on sports and high school and prom and getting good grades and where they're going to go to college. Let's stand up for them. Let someone else stand in that space and take the attacks and do that, because I know everything soccer brought me and sports brought me, and I wanted those girls to also experience that. And so that's kind of why I started speaking out.
That I really love this, and I wanted to emphasize it because you don't have to have competed against a boy to speak out. You don't have to currently be competing against a boy to speak out. My friend Ella Fry in New Richmond, who so bravely has been standing up and fighting for girls' privacy and private spaces in her school when the school district started to allow biological boys to use their bathrooms and locker rooms and shower rooms, started because she's an athlete, she's a jumper, she plays volleyball. She contacted me and she said, after watching you and what you were doing in California, I sent her video and I said, oh, you have to look at what they're doing in California, fighting what's happening with AB Hernandez and several other male athletes that are competing on the girls' teams. Her mom said she couldn't sleep at night, and she called me the next day and said, can I speak out even though I'm not competing against a boy? I do these jumps. These are my events. And I just can't sleep knowing that there are girls that have to endure this. And she's like, Scarlett, it's more than that. You spend so much time with your teammates and you're on bus rides and you're training, you're in locker rooms and shower rooms. And she's like, I just can't imagine what it must be like to be around a boy and to pretend that everything's normal. And I was so glad that she started to speak out. And the first thing the hater said was, well, you're not competing against a boy. Why do you care? And she's like, well, I care because I'm a girl and I'm an athlete. And I see what's happening in California. I know it could happen in my home state. And I want to speak out before something bad happens. And I want to have solidarity with all these girls. So I think that your message is so good, that speak out where you are. Say something, whether you're my age or you're young, say something, because it gives girls the courage to stand up. And if enough girls come together and say, no, I don't want this to happen, I think that's the way things are going to change.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you think, like you said, the first thing the haters were telling her is, well, this isn't happening to you. When have we become a society and culture where something bad has to happen to you to speak out against something bad happening? I mean, think about the Holocaust, think about slavery. Were only people that endured that were supposed to speak out? No, when you see an injustice, you should speak out on it. I think if more adults were speaking out on this issue, we'd see it come to an end quicker and sooner. And so, again, something bad doesn't have to happen to you for you to speak out on the injustice. We all have voices. We should all use them. We should all stand for what's right.
Yeah, this is the civil rights issue of our time. And imagine you're in the 1950s as the birth of the civil rights movement starts, and you think, well, it's not happening to me, so I shouldn't say something. That's silly. Like, of course, you see an injustice happen, you have to say something. But let's talk about your personal experience, because while I have watched the videos of what's happening in California, you are there. You are right in the thick of it. What's happening? What have you witnessed? And from what I've read, you were even forced to leave one of these events. So tell all of us who aren't in California what's happening there. And it seems a little crazy. And what is your experience with some of the girls, the actual athletes that have to compete against boys like AB Hernandez?
Yeah. So like you said, the event that I was asked to leave, let's dive into that first, because that kind of spearheaded a lot of this. And so that was with the Moms for Liberty of Yolo County. And this was a couple of years ago now, back in 2023, I believe. And, one of the moms, Beth Bourne, who was just on the show with you, she wanted to put together this, just at a local library in her county, a little event for parents and grandparents to know about protecting girls' sports and what's happening. And so they asked me if I could come MC the event and share a little bit of my story with sports. And I was like, absolutely, let's do it. I remember we had a giant work event the next day at the state capitol. We were doing this big old lobby day, but I asked my boss, hey, it's just at a local library. There's probably only gonna be 20 to 30 parents there. It's super low key. I'll only be gone for an hour, so then I'll be back to help with the lobby day. And he's like, okay, fine. Like, if it's just going to be short, go do it. And I was like, perfect. I wanted to talk about girls' sports, wanted to stand up on that issue. And I was very wrong about how that event was going to go. The room ended up being filled with about 60 to 70 attendees. That's what the room could hold. And I would say 3/4 of them were protesters. They were mad that we were going to protect girls' sports and talk about the issue. In reality, we were just informing the public. Here's what's happening to your daughters and granddaughters. But they claimed that I was misgendering people because I was saying boys don't belong in girls' sports. The librarian eventually came in and said if I continue to misgender people that he was going to kick me out. And so I remember looking at Beth at the time and was just like, hey, this is your event. I'm not trying to get it shut down. And she said, just say biological boys and girls. Maybe they won't lose their mind over that. So I said, okay, biological boys shouldn't be in biological girls sports. And when I tell you the crowd with their trans flags and they had pride written up and down their arms, they were all wearing masks and they had their pride shirts and rainbow flags and all the different things. They continue to genuinely yell over me after I already said, we're going to have a Q&A at the end. Can you guys just respect the speakers that are here? And so the librarian eventually said, you are misgendering people. We're kicking you out, and then shut down the event, which was the worst thing they could have done because it put us in the perfect position to then sue them for a violation of our First Amendment right. And, what was supposed to be an event for 20 to 40 local parents and grandparents, because of their reaction, because of their anger for us simply just stating the truth, it's common sense, it's biological reality, this blew up overnight. We put the whole 10-minute video of this kind of playing out on X, and literally put it out on night, by the next morning, it's at 2 million views. We're talking about it on Sean Hannity. We're suing the county library with Alliance Defending Freedom. And our whole argument was, we ended up being able to win. And so we said, this win is for everyone. We all deserve the First Amendment right. We all deserve freedom of speech. This country can only continue to get better if we're able to have conversations. And so I just think it's so funny what they tried to shut down turned into a national news situation and really, I feel like, awakened what's happening in California and the sports issue. Because this was 3 years ago now. This was before we were seeing tons of stories being spoken about left and right. And so I'm grateful for the haters that showed up that day, honestly.
This is what they do all the time. They show up and honestly, it just brings us into the national public spotlight. And then you see these normal young moms, grandmothers, young girls, and then you see the other side. And they're still wearing masks, by the way. Like at many of their protests, they're still wearing masks, but they look crazy. And that mismatch when the public can see that these are just parents and grandparents and girls saying something very logical, that boys have advantages. They have physiological advantages, which makes it unfair when they compete in all female categories, and unsafe. It's just not right. And it's not fair competition. And no one likes to watch a competition that isn't fair. That's why there are weight classes. That's why there's different size basketballs for girls than there's for boys, to account for biological reality. Yet we're supposed to suspend our intellect and everything that we know and pretend that this is normal. And I think that what the CIF just recently did by changing the podiums so that two can fit on, and there's a champion and co-champion, kind of gives lie to what they try to say, that, oh yeah, this is just normal, that there's no difference. So let's talk about that. Like now, let's to the present. What just happened this year? What did you see? And how do you think that the CIF has further damaged its reputation?
Yeah, so CIF, who oversees high school sports, they have in California, they have continued to allow boys and girls sports. They've been claiming their hands are tied by the state because we do have a state law, AB 1266, which allows athletes to use locker rooms, bathrooms, and play on sports teams based off of gender identity and not sex. So CIF keeps saying, well, we're just following state law. That's a lie. CIF has their own bylaw in place that states the same thing the law does. It's bylaw 300D, and CIF themselves in their bylaw states that athletes are allowed to play sports based off of gender identity and not sex. That leads us to what we saw happen this year. We saw AB Hernandez, who was dominating in 3 girls track and field events. This is a male athlete. It's very evident he's a male when you see him competing, when you see him walking around with the girls, and when you see him honestly cosplaying as a woman. You see like all the makeup on. Not one other girl is wearing a ton of makeup to compete at the track and field event that's 100 degrees. Like, but they think that that's what makes you a woman. And so we watched in CIF track and field, and you have to think about California. California is one of the biggest states. We have the most people. And so to make it to state, you are one of the top athletes in California, which I truly think makes you one of the top athletes across the nation. There's a reason colleges go to California to recruit. There's a reason California is the hub for recruiting athletes. We're a bigger state. We have a lot of people. We have a lot of facilities and things to get you to a higher level. So at the high school level, AB Hernandez, we watched him all through the month of May. It started with round 1 of CIF, going all the way to state. And so he was constantly taking first in these 3 events, which isn't a shock. I mean, he's a male. We're watching him out jump these girls by crazy numbers. Of course, his numbers are still not good enough to make it to the boys CIF state. And so that's kind of what you see play out too. These male athletes who are just whatever athletes when it comes to the boy division are now.
Yeah, they might not even qualify in that sport, in that particular, like in the long jump. And I'm going to pull up some of these stats as you talk, because I think people need to see the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we have the girls that reach out to us and say, hey, I'm not happy about this. We want help. What can we do? So we've thrown a couple press conferences now and allowed the girls the opportunity to publicly speak out about this. We saw Reese Hogan and Olivia Viola, 2 athletes that both had to compete against him throughout the month of May. They, instead of just spending their week leading up to their event and eating right and sleeping well and training and taking care of their bodies and just really mentally focusing and locking in on their Saturday track and field event, they were now having to spend time writing a speech to simply say what's happening to them is unfair. And you really think about that. We didn't force these girls into that. These girls were asking us for help. These girls wanted to speak out. And so now, amidst everything, they're showing up early. They're not going with their school on the bus because they're coming early to speak at the press conference, and really just having to worry more about that than just being able to compete like girls should be able to. And so we were able to talk with these girls, and there's quite a few that are not okay with AB Hernandez playing in girls sports, with males in girls sports, that would reach out and would message me on social media and say, thank you so much. I'm so appreciative of what you guys are doing. I'm playing against him and I don't think this is okay, but I'm too scared to speak out.
Yep.
I'm afraid of the pushback.
There's and I'm looking right now, but there what went viral, the image of the girls looking at AB Hernandez and the face, it's like that face you make when, like supposedly there, of course, the headlines and some of the mainstream news were like, oh, all the girls are just fine with it. They have no problem with it. And then there's just this image that image said everything. The girls looking at him like, what? And the boys looking at him like, who's like, that's a dude. That's how we feel. Mm-hmm. We're looking at this and we're like, that's not right. And just like what you said, does this masculine run, this masculine jump, and then gets up and then starts like, kind of walking in this way that's performative. Mm-hmm. None of the girls have makeup on, and he's got a whole face full of makeup and pink ribbons and nails done. Girls don't look like that. This is a caricature of a girl. This is what you look like when you're pretending to be a girl, or you're trying to hide a 5 o'clock shadow as well. But it was icky to watch, because it's like, I don't want to watch this cosplay. I
Mhm.
want to watch the real girls.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we saw CIF put a policy in place. They put this policy in place last year as a pilot policy, and they put it again this year, basically stating that if there is a male athlete in the girls division who makes it to a podium spot, that the female athlete, so AB Hernandez coming in first, the female athlete who actually came in first because he stole that because he's a male, the female athlete who actually came in first now has to share a podium with him. That is so humiliating to these girls. I mean, think about it. If you came in first for these events at the state event, you were the top female athlete. Track and field, it's one of those sports where there's not really club to it. Like high school is what gets you to the collegiate level. High school is where the emphasis is on for track and field. And so knowing that this girl is the best athlete at that event in the state of California at the high school level, and now she has to share a podium with a male athlete. And it's just like these small little podiums. So they're standing up there all squished, having to smile and pretend that they're okay with what's happening. And you know what's really funny too is the other side, the side that's okay with boys and girls sports, is upset about this policy too. And so it's really interesting to me that the people that CIF have been trying to protect all these years are now mad at CIF because they think it's saying that AB Hernandez is basically a ghost athlete. He gets to compete, he gets the top spot, but then still has to share it with a girl. And it just blows my mind. Like, these people are mad that the male athlete in the girls division who is stealing a girl's spot now has to share it with a girl.
Yes.
Like, make it make sense.
I know they make no one happy because all the trans activists are upset because like he won, and everyone else is upset that, like, how it's to me, it's like just this humiliation ritual. I think Riley Gaines termed that, and she's right. We're watching a humiliation ritual. The girls have to stand next to the boy and pretend that this is normal. They've got to participate. They've got to affirm. They've got their speeches compelled. There's just so many things that are wrong with this. And I know that there are some, and I'm sure you see them online, where they'll say, well, the girls shouldn't compete. They put the impetus on the girls, some teenage girls, saying, you know what, you've worked for this, you're part of a team, the team would suffer if you didn't compete. You should just walk away. You shouldn't compete at all. And I don't like that because it puts all of the burden on the girls, that they are the ones. Now I want more girls to speak up, and I want more girls to find a way to rebel. If that means don't stand on the podium, do that, whatever they feel comfortable with. But I do not want to put this burden on the girls. This is an adult problem, and there needs to be an adult solution.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you see all the, like you said, the pushback on the girls, and it just really has me thinking the girls are already having to endure so much,
Yeah.
and now the adults in the room are going to tell them that they have to solve it themselves and stand up for themselves. Like, it's just so disappointing when I see that. Every parent should be speaking up for these girls. Every adult should be speaking up for these girls. Anyone that's in any position of leadership should be speaking up for these girls. And so, yeah, do I think if we could somehow get every one of the girls at the track and field event to sit out, would it make a difference? Yes, but these girls are coming from so many different schools, from so many different places. The ability to actually get everyone together and say, hey, when he goes to jump, no other girl is going to jump, is one, nearly impossible to just get that together. And two, it would make a statement for the day. It would make a couple news hits, and then we'd be back right into the circle of this happening. And so I do believe that if a female is having to play against a male in a sport like soccer or volleyball, where there's just a higher risk of being injured, I do believe parents should really have a conversation with their daughters of, this one game, for your safety, we're not going to have you play. And I think the parents should do that, because then the girls can be like, you know what? My parents are forcing me into this. This is out of my control. And even if the girl didn't want to play, that then just allows them to take that pressure off their backs. But when it comes to track and field and the jumping events, it's not like AB was going to ram into a girl like you would in
Yeah.
soccer. And so there's more flexibility, and the girls wanted to compete. At the end of the day, they wanted to compete. And so who are we to now almost demonize these girls because they want to compete in a sport that they've trained their entire lives for? And so, yeah, the adults need to be standing up. The adults need to be speaking out on it. And when I went to the track meets, I went there, and every time one of the girls jumped, I was just cheering on the girls. They're choosing to jump.
Yeah.
That's what they've decided to do. And so let's go cheer them on. Let's go support them in that decision.
And when AB, just silence, nothing.
Mhm.
Just don't give it any voice. But you made a very important distinction, because right now my now soon to be senior daughter plays basketball. I would not allow her to compete if one of her opponents was a biological male, because that's unsafe for her. As a matter of fact, over I think it was Christmas break, just for fun, the girls played in with the boys basketball team, and it was really just for fun. Ended up my daughter ended up with a bloody nose because when they were just playing and it was all very light, the strength of one of the guys, he didn't know his own strength, and an incident happened and she got injured, and it was all fine. I felt terrible, like there was nothing bad. But imagine if this was a competition, a game, and they're trying to win. It's just too dangerous. There are sports that are too dangerous to allow your daughter to participate in if there's a biological male competing. So that's where parents have to say, nope, my daughter, no, we're going to be very public about it. We're not going to say she's sick. We're going to say, no, my daughter is not competing against a biological male. That is unsafe. But in these individual events, in swimming, in track, in events where there isn't the physical contact, I can't even imagine with soccer. I mean, I've had one of my daughters play soccer, my son plays soccer. That's a combat.
Yes.
I mean, there's a lot of physical contact. It is not safe at all to allow a girl to compete against a boy in that kind of sport. Field hockey, can you imagine? That would be so dangerous. And we've seen with volleyball. We even had a story in Wisconsin a few years ago where a biological boy was allowed to start to practice with the girls, and 5 of the girls ended up quitting the team before the season even started because of the bruises and the welts and the bloody noses that they were receiving from their own teammate who was a boy. And the parents stood up and they were outraged. And this was 2023, when, of course, the Biden administration offered no relief and instead tried to push this horrendous 1,500-page Title IX policy that would have made everything worse. So what now? There was one you tried. Did you try to hand out flyers at one of the meets? What happened there?
Yeah, so unfortunately, AB Hernandez, dominating at girls track and field state, he did the same thing last year. This was his second time doing it. So many of these girls were just experiencing the same thing again. I remember getting texts from some of them like, I can't believe we're back in the same position. I can't believe this is happening again. So at the 2025 CIF state event, I went and we had little flyers and they were just half page flyers that simply said, we need to follow Title IX. Here's 3 ways we can follow it, and sign this petition urging CIF to follow Title IX, because Title IX supersedes state law. So CIF should be following Title IX. And it was a cute little pink flyer. And then we have these little pink bracelets that say Save Girls Sports xxonly.org. And, I went to the track and field event, went inside, paid to get in. You had to pay to get tickets. They do bag searches to get in. I opened my bag. They could see all the flyers in it. They could see a couple hundred bracelets in my little backpack. And I decided, okay, while there's no events going on, I'm going to just chat with people, say, hey, have you heard about Title IX? Do you know there's a male competing today? Here's how we can ask CIF to follow Title IX and protect girls' sports. And was very intentional about doing this while there wasn't an event happening. Track and field, it moves so quickly. I don't want to be trying to talk to a parent as their kid's competing and they miss it. And so talked to about 10 people. It was like over 100 degrees that day in Central California. So as the events went to start, went and sat in the shade off kind of to my own area. And I'm there with my mom. And here we see a CIF official walking up with 2 security guards. And I'm like, oh, I wonder what that's about. They're just walking around. And all of a sudden they turn and they come straight to where I'm sitting, literally sitting in a beach chair, minding my business, waiting for the girls' event to start so I can cheer them on. And she goes, are you the one handing out the bracelets and flyers? Mind you, I'm wearing the bracelets. I have a pink Save Girls Sports hat on, a Save Girls Sports shirt on. Like, yes, obviously, I'm the one handing these out. And so I just said, yeah, I handed a couple out. And she said, okay, we're going to have to ask you to leave. So I said, okay, what is the policy that says I can't be doing this? Because I have posters in my car and banners in my car, but I saw up front that you'd said you can't bring any posters or banners in. So I left those. There was nothing about flyers. There is nothing about bracelets. So she kept going on and on. Well, there's a policy that you can't hand anything out. And so you have to leave. And I said, I would like for you to show me that policy. Like, show me where it is. She goes, well, I'll email it to you later. I said, I would like to see it right now because you can go edit something and put it in place later, but it might not be there right now. And I said, and how are you going to email it? You haven't even asked me for my email. And immediately she goes, well, I know who you are. So I'm like, okay, so you were out here on a mission. You were out here with some vengeance trying to stop whatever's going on. And so I even said, can I go put everything in my car? I'm here to cheer on the girls. Some of the girls asked me to be here to support them. No, you can't. Can I throw them away in front of you? I'm here to cheer on the girls and support the girls. I'd only been inside the venue for like 25, 30 minutes. And she said no. And eventually police escorted me out of the event with my mom. We said, can we just go out back through the front where our car is? Nope. They sent us through a side gate where we had to walk over nearly a mile, carrying like my backpack, the chairs, all the things, and over 100-degree heat. She had no right to kick me out. It was evidently violating again what my beliefs are. Mm-hmm. And so, it's just so disheartening that happened. And then after the track meet, we watched pictures come out as CIF was escorting AB Hernandez around the event. And the same lady that kicked me out, and there's a picture of her yelling at me, is the same lady that was escorting him around the event. So I was kicked out for wanting to protect girls' sports, but then they're protecting the male athlete, invading girls' sports. And so she's still with CIF. Her name's Bobby Madsen. And she is just, it's really disheartening to watch women work towards their own erasure.
No, that was a surprise to many girls that I talked to that are in this, that the biggest surprise to them is that there are so many of these very woke women that are against them, and they're so vocal about it. And it's really unfortunate. Like the way you said it was perfect. Why would you be working for your own erasure? Why don't you care more about actual girls and women versus these pretend girls and women? And it's because of the ideology and the virtue signaling, and that's a whole nother show. But it is not the majority. It's not even the majority in California, because good news, I know you had a press conference with Sonia Shaw, a friend of mine and just a warrior, that she won the popular vote in the latest primary for the state superintendent of California. So how did that make you feel? That had to make you feel pretty good about get some good news in California.
Yeah, I've been watching Sonia just work so incredibly hard. And one of the main things she's been running on is the girls' sports issue, yes, making it very clear that she will protect girls' sports. She stands for the protection of girls' sports. She has not been quiet about that. And then to see that as we're watching the election results come in California in the primary, to see she was the only person in the state superintendent race that got over 1 million votes. The next person was around, last I saw was in the 800,000s. California is a little slow, so I don't know what the exact update is now, but to see how well she did really proves what Californians want to see. To see that she ran, and one of her top issues again was protecting girls' sports, and she got over 1 million votes. It's so encouraging to watch that, Truly, most of the people you talk to in California think it is wrong for boys to be in girls' sports. It is a small minority of people that are okay with this. As crazy as people think California can be, our government is not representative of our people. You are watching people that have been Democrats their whole life say, yeah, I'm not okay with boys and girls sports. I mean, my organization, we're a Christian nonprofit, and we are partnering up with the lesbian atheists from San Francisco on this issue. It really shows that people, for the most part, understand that boys don't belong in girls sports and spaces. And so to see Sonia do so well, it was such a win. It really shows that most Californians do still have common sense. And so we're going to keep just helping her. I'm going to keep helping her, and we want to make sure we keep the message out there. She still has a really hard election in front of her now coming in November. But also, we saw before the whole primary happened, we saw Steve Hilton and Chad Bianco, the top two Republicans running for governor. They made the girls' sports issue one of their top issues in their campaign, to the point where the top two Democrats, Becerra and Steyer, actually had to speak out and say that they are protecting boys and girls sports, that they stand with quote unquote trans athletes. So we're now at a time in California where 3 years ago, people didn't want to talk about it. Now it's one of the main talking points on this election, which I do believe shows we're going in the right direction. People running for office know it's something they actually have to talk about. And I know people that they just unfortunately cannot bring themselves to vote for a Republican, but they actually said they didn't vote for a Democrat for the governor because of the girls' sports issue. They just chose to leave it empty. I think they still should have voted for the Republican, but the fact that we have people who can't bring themselves to switch party lines, but will not vote for the candidate on their side because they're for boys and girls sports really shows there's positive movement happening. There's positive momentum. So even though we still have a big fight ahead of us, we are so much further along than we were 3 years ago.
Yeah, this is an inflection point issue. And all over every state, Republicans, conservatives, they have realized that this issue, when they talk about this, the room goes on fire. Like it can be pretty dull, and then they'll say, and no boys and girls sports, and everyone's cheering. It's because it's so much more than just one sport, one state. It is an issue about reality, biological reality, truth. And frankly, I think this is a civilizational issue, because if we are going to force our young girls, if we're going to force them to endure humiliation rituals and to live a lie, and we're willing to sacrifice them just so people aren't mean to us, or they don't say mean things on social media, then what does that say about us? Mm-hmm. I think this issue is it's so big because it is symbolic of the whole of what we're up against. We're fighting for truth. If you're Christian, you're fighting for biblical truth. Even as a scientist, you're fighting for biological truth. And as a human race, we're fighting for this existential fight for humanity, I think, because the slippery slope is evident. You can see what happens when you start to say, okay, I'll just be kind and I'll agree and I won't say anything. Before you know it, there is no longer free speech. There isn't protections for children. And now suddenly even small children, very young children, are completely unprotected and they're vulnerable. And frankly, they become prey to predators. This ideology hurts children, and it hurts girls, but it hurts all children. And I think that that's something that has to be kept in mind when people start to think, oh, this is just about a sport. No, this is deeper than that.
Most definitely. And a lot of people, they're, I don't want to say anything because, like you said, Scarlett, they're thinking, well, it's not, we want to make sure we're kind to everyone. We're loving to everyone. I want to make something so clear. It is not kind and loving to lie to these boys and tell them that you were born in the wrong body and you can change your sex. That's not true. There is no mistake the way you're made. You cannot change your sex. It is not kind and loving to allow girls to be erased, to be harmed, and to lose their rights. What's kind and loving is to say the truth, to speak up for what is right, to stop injustice. And so these people, a lot of people they're fearful, and I get it, because there's hate out there. There are threats, there are things that happen, but so many people don't want to publicly state where they stand because they're so afraid of people, of the comments that might come in, the DMs they might get, the names they'll get called. First of all, my fear of God is greater than fear of man, but also I am more afraid of one day looking my future daughters and granddaughters in the eyes and telling them that when I saw an injustice against our rights, our safety, our fairness come under attack, I knew the truth, I knew it was wrong, and I said nothing. We have to stand up for what is right. We have to push the fear aside. The other side actually wins when we allow them to silence us because we're afraid. That's why they say the hateful things. That's why they say these comments, because they think they can get you to be quiet. We had a press conference again in the beginning of May at the first round of this CIF track and field nonsense. And we did this whole press conference. We had 5 girls speak. Sonia Shaw spoke, I spoke, and then the other side, the pro boys and girls sports side, they decided to hold a press conference that day as well. To our press conference, we had about 60 or 70 people in attendance, tons of support, a couple thousand people watching online. And this press conference, I think it was like the 4 speakers that were there because, again, people do not agree with them. But the whole press conference, they sat there, because I watched it to see what do they have to say on this issue. They sat there just attacking myself and Sonia and all these things for speaking out. They went on this long rant that I drive a G-Wagon. I don't drive a G-Wagon. I have a Ford. But I'm if the worst thing you have against me is in your mind, I have a $250,000 car. One, who cares if I did? Who cares? Who knows if that was a gift or if someone bought it for me? That's the worst you can say. But they say all these lies. Yeah. They say all these hateful things because they want to get you to be afraid and to put you into silence with fear. And so we have to speak out against it. And the more people that speak out, the less fearful people will have to be about it because everyone's saying things. I mean, when I speak out on these issues, I find that people that I haven't talked to in years, people that I went to high school with, or, people that I didn't even know really agreed with me politically are texting me or messaging me on Instagram. And they're like, thank you. I agree with you. I stand with you. And so you'll find most people actually do agree with you if you just speak out on this issue.
Now, Governor Newsom called the girls at this press conference bullies. These young girls, some teenage girls that wrote speeches and delivered them before their races, because no adults in California with power would protect them. There were no leaders out there to have their back. So what do you say to Gavin Newsom when he calls you and these girls bullies?
Yeah, when I woke up that day and saw that tweet from his office saying that these girls were bullies. And I thought, okay, Governor, he claims that his wife is always standing for women's rights. He proudly talks about his daughter, all these things. And then he's calling high school girls who are literally asking for the bare minimum. They're asking for just their basic rights, for some protection, for some safety. To call girls who speak out on this issue bullies is disgusting. I mean, Governor Newsom is a coward. That's true. He is, because he likes to publicly say sometimes that this is a confusing topic and it is wrong for boys to be in girls' sports. But if the girls speak out about it, now they're bullies. I mean, no wonder so many of the high school girls don't want to speak out, because I believe the most well-known governor. I mean, you talk to people about other states, they can't tell you the governors of those states, but everyone knows about Governor Newsom, is calling high school girls bullies for just simply saying boys don't belong in their sports. When someone with that level of power is now doing that to these girls, it's disgusting, truly.
I mean, to me, that is real abuse. They always talk about how much they hate the patriarchy. What could be worse? A man with the most power in your state, the governor of California, calling young girls bullies. That he's the bully. He's the bad guy in all of this. So Reese Hogan turned down Division I opportunities in California. She's leaving her home state for college in a different state because California is not protecting athletics. So when you hear that, how does that make you feel?
Oh, it literally, like, even though I've talked to Reese Hogan, I've heard this before, it gives me the chills when you even say it, Scarlett, because Reese, I've had the pleasure of watching her compete the last 2 years, is a phenomenal athlete in multiple different track and field events. She played other sports in high school as well. Just a complete stud of an athlete. Then you hear her speak and she's so articulate. She's so smart. She has so much potential to continue to grow into an amazing young woman. And to know that California is losing out on that potential because she doesn't feel safe to stay. I mean, that is, I think, the biggest blow to California. Girls are actually fleeing the state when they have Division I offers. I mean, people dream of playing a Division I sport. These girls, Reese can play Division I here in her home state. I know how important it is to play locally. My parents were an hour away from where I played college soccer, and they were able to come to every game, and that makes a difference. That makes a huge difference when your family and friends are able to come support you and watch you play. And so knowing she actually feels like, I have to leave my home state where I was born and raised because I don't feel safe and protected here. And I don't think she's being dramatic. I think she's 100% accurate in feeling that way. And Governor Newsom, instead of calling these girls bullies, should figure out actually how to protect these girls.
Yes, because we do have these Supreme Court decisions coming out. We're very excited. I know in January, I was in DC. You were there as well, as the oral arguments were heard. And there is a general feeling that the Supreme Court is going to come out and say that there are, I believe it is 27 states now that they've passed laws, there's statutes that protect female sports. They say that there can be sex separated sports, but that leaves out the other states that do not have this specific legislation passed because they have Democrat governors or they have Democrats that control their state houses. And so for Reese to feel that way, that is a logical conclusion that athletes may have to think, female athletes may have to think, do I need to really look at the program or the state that I'm going to be accepting? Because what if I'm getting a scholarship and I'm participating in college athletics, I just don't want to deal with this.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's already so much that goes into thinking about where you're going to go to college. For myself, I had over a dozen out of state offers. And really what the sell was here was, again, being local, being in my home state. Just my grandparents, they were at every game growing up. And so knowing that they would be able to make it to my college games versus out of state, you go play a sport for 4 years, your parents might only see you play 4 times in 4 years, And so it's to now think that the girls no longer have to think, where do I want to go to school? Where is my best scholarship offer at? What is the best coach? What team did I like the best when I went and did my visit? They're now actually having to get together a list and say, but is it in a state that protects girls' sports?
Yeah.
Do I know where my coach stands on this issue? Will I be at a college that is supportive of me if I don't think it's okay for boys to be in girls' sports? It's so ridiculous that girls have to think about this at this point. But like you said, with the Supreme Court, the oral arguments, I believe we're 99% going to get a good decision out of the Supreme Court on this. But it's really disturbing that we have hit a time where the Supreme Court is having to argue whether or not states have the right to protect girls' sports. And to think that there was even attorneys and people on the other side that want to say states don't have that right, it's just, I don't know how we've hit this point in culture and society, how it's gone downhill so quickly. But like you said, it's going to be 27 states that are protected. But for the 23 states that aren't, every person needs to be pushing on their governor, on their state legislature, and basically say, you now have the right. The Supreme Court, if we get that good decision, the Supreme Court has ruled that states have the right to protect girls' sports. Why aren't you? And so it'll give us a whole new angle to push back on our state governments and try to get them to stand for what's right.
Yes, it will. And it will, because I've gone to testify, you've gone to testify in your state house, and they will say, our hands are tied. We can't, we can't discriminate. This would really bolster our legal claim that absolutely you can protect sex separated sports. You're just choosing not to. And so that there'll be, depending on how it's worded, that's why a lot of lawyers, there could be different language, there could be stronger language, there could be weaker language. So we're all waiting. I told you, I hope the decision comes out next week, Thursday, because I'll be in DC, but we're all waiting with bated breath to see what the Supreme Court's going to say. And you're right. It's unfortunate that we have to depend on the Supreme Court because there are too many woke lawyers and big law firms that will just litigate and litigate and litigate. So you have a win and then boom, there's a lawsuit and there's still confusion. So it'll be great to have some more clarity. As we close, I know Olivia Viola just described her final 2 seasons, and she's a California high school athlete, as a cloud of controversy. She's a high school girl. These are just her last 2 years of high school sports. These should have been some of the greatest years of her life. And instead, it's controversy. Instead, each competition is just a clown show where everyone's wondering, what will A.B. Hernandez do next? And how will people react? It really deflects from the girls and their achievements and the families that want to be there and cheer them on. How does it make you feel when girls instead of feeling happy and elated, they kind of like, it's the end?
Yeah, I wish I could fix this overnight for them. I wish every adult could hear what Olivia and Reese have said, and it should inspire every adult to stand up for what's right. I hate that even 30 years from now, when their kids one day and 50 years from now, when their grandkids one day are playing high school sports and they say, Grandma, what was high school sports like for you? Mom, did you like playing high school sports? Which sport did you have the most fun? That whether or not they necessarily share this experience with their kids and grandkids, they're always going to think about that in their mind. Like, oh man, my high school sports were kind of ruined because the leaders didn't stand up for me. It was a cloud of controversy, like Olivia said. And again, Olivia is a phenomenal athlete. She is such a joyful young woman. Her and Reese both, they're just amazing. They're so articulate. You hear them speak and give these speeches and go on the news and you forget that they're 17-year-old girls. They're just they're amazing. But to know that they have to look back and think that, I mean, I look back on my high school sports and CIF and I'm like, that was so fun. We'd always have the soccer team over at my house and we would have team dinners before the game. And remember this one game where that happened? And, you know, I run into some of the girls I used to play with and it's like, oh my gosh. And it's just there's so much, it's joyful. It's positive. It's a great experience to look back on. And knowing that that has been stolen from these girls, it breaks my heart. And I hope every person listening to this, I hope it breaks their heart as well. And it encourages them and inspires them to speak up and stand up. I mean, I don't have kids yet. I'm speaking out because I don't want my kids to face this one day. If I can try to stop this now, if I can stand for what's right now, I'm going to. And so even people that are listening that don't have kids, stand up now. I mean, that's why I do it. I don't have kids. I have the time. I have the time and energy to go do. I mean, Scarlett, just to hear that you have 5 kids and you're doing everything you're doing is so impressive and so incredible. And so those of you that do have kids, you obviously can speak out. Like, look at Scarlett just absolutely killing it. But we got to speak out for these girls. Let those quotes from the girls that are absolutely heartbreaking to hear light a fire inside of you to do what's right.
Yes. And Alexa Anderson, who I just talked to, where she just said, where are the adults? Where are the adults? We're just kids. We're just kids. And we're kind of thrown in this situation. And we shouldn't have to be here. We shouldn't have to do this, but here we are. And so I think the message to adults is you need to be the example, and you need to stand up, and you need to say something. And my message to the girls, please speak up, speak out, and parents support your girls as they do it, because it is a brave and noble thing. And it's the only way that this is going to stop. We need to hear from more girls that are just going to say no. Just no, we're not going to go along with this. This isn't about hate. This is about love for the sport, love for my teammates, love for myself, and a desire for privacy, dignity, and fairness. What would you say to a teenage girl who's competing, who's afraid to speak up, who's losing hope, and who maybe lives in a blue state and thinks, is this ever going to get better? What would you say to her?
This is not the new normal. We can't accept it. We must keep pushing back. I would tell that girl that she deserves better than this. And so let's speak out. We are here to help you every single step of the way. We want to protect girls' sports. I believe one day we will see girls' sports protected again. Unfortunately, for these girls, I would tell this girl, right now, your voice might not necessarily protect you this year or the next year, but you're protecting the future generations. That I tell the girls that I work with all the time, I truly believe I'm going to see their names in the history books one day. And so many girls are going to be looking up to them. I mean, they already are, but so many girls are going to read about them and read their stories and look up to them. And so you're here for such a time as this. Let's speak out. Let's use your voice. I'm sorry this is happening to you. I'm heartbroken this is happening to you. But let's try to make a difference and use the situation. Because again, you're here for such a time as this.
Well, you couldn't end it more perfectly, because that is the mantra of Moms for Liberty, that we are here for such a time as this. We were made for such a time as this, and we have to be strong and we have to be joyful warriors. But part of that word, joyful warriors, we have to be warriors, and it is incumbent upon us to make a difference for children who cannot, they're minors. They cannot protect themselves in these situations, particularly legally. We have to be there. We have to protect them, and we have to stand for truth, and we have to be an example of not living by a lie. It only takes a small amount. It's so small, the amount of people that it requires to really make a change. And you really are a change maker, Sophia, in California. Having just been there and met with so many wonderful, wonderful school board members, moms and dads who are fighting back, I was so impressed with Californians. And California, there is hope in California, because I've met the people there, and they're strong and they're fighters. And they aren't going to stop. They are going to keep fighting for truth. And I know in the end, truth will out. So thank you all. Thank you for fighting for California. And I can't wait to talk to you again. And I hope it's because we heard really good news from the Supreme Court.
Yes. Well, thank you for having me, Scarlett. And thank you for everything that you and Moms for Liberty are doing. I mean, you guys are constantly at the California Capitol helping us make a change. So grateful to know you and to work alongside you.
Thank you so much for coming on. Bye.